And we're back. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Deconstructing Narcissism. Got a different kind of video for you guys today. Wanted to talk about video games. Specifically, why I believe more and more modern men, or men I should say, why more and more men are playing video games in this day and age. Now, let me give you a little backstory on my history with video games. I used to be a complete addict. I'll go into why I used to play a lot of video games. I haven't played in a while because I'm trying to get my shit together. But I used to be a complete addict when it came to the video games. All right, I would. Oh my god. I mean, I remember my parents. They didn't really raise me. I was raised in front of the TV and the video games. I wasn't actually raised right. But everybody on my channel already knows this. So I pretty much, growing up, I was not allowed to do much, right? My brother and my sister got privileges. They got more privileges than I did growing up. So I was inside most of the time. I wasn't allowed to go out with friends around the block or, unsupervised or any of that. I could go, growing up, I used to go to friends' houses and stuff, but it would always be supervised, heavily, as in, my parents would either be there with me, my mom would be there with me, because she was friends with, their mom. So, she would either be there with me, or it was always to the point where, she'd call and check up on me, make sure I was okay, not anywhere else. But I wasn't really allowed to do much growing up. I mean, it was. So I was pretty much limited to video games, and of course, how narcissistic my parents were, they had a problem with this because, even though they bought me the video games in the first place, they had a problem with me playing them all the time. Then when I tried to do anything else, go outside anywhere, explore, become independent as I grew up, that's when the control got, more and more strict. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. I mean, I could barely even go to, this is off topic, but I could barely even, I remember being 18, 19 years old, they were still trying to control me going out with my friends. And of course, I didn't have the means or the car, I didn't have the means or own my own car at the time to leave, so I was pretty much stuck. But, I'm going to give my perspective, and then I'm going to talk about why I believe other men are doing it. So, the only reason why I stayed home and played video games so much, like I said, is because I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. But I'm going to tell you guys why I personally, I still have troubles with the video games today, okay? I'm going to go into my personal reasons right now. So as a kid, again, it was really hard to make friends due to the lack of social interaction. And the fact that I wasn't allowed to go anywhere, which contributed to the lack of social interaction, the lack of friends. I had always felt different from other kids back then because of this. And, the moment I discovered video games, I was like 5 or something, 6. It started out with a Nintendo, played Nintendo, got really good at it, and then I went on to the PlayStation 1, and then I went on to PlayStation 2, and PlayStation 3, but it was just like, no matter how I was feeling, essentially, the video games were always there. I could escape and do another reality, whether it was Mario, whether it was, playing a role-playing game, Final Fantasy, whether it was playing Ratchet and Clank. I remember when Ratchet and Clank used to came out. I got really heavily into Ratchet and Clank, but there were always, these characters, these stories that were going on within these video games. And I just remember sitting down and getting lost, for hours in these stories, learning about these characters, making memories inside these games, feeling like I was someone important. For me, I think that's one of the main reasons why I got so heavily addicted to the video games, is because I felt like I mattered. I felt like I was important. I played a role in something. In whatever game I was playing, I played a role in that story, in that game. I played an important role. I was needed by someone or something. And growing up my whole childhood, throughout middle school, throughout high school, I never felt like I was needed. I told you guys, my abusive friend Tony, I met other abusive people. I met a lot of other people who didn't want anything to do with me. Growing up in elementary school and in middle school, like, I was not wanted on any sports team because I sucked in sports, because again, I had no social interaction, and I was pretty much stuck inside. I was never allowed to go anywhere. Otherwise, my narcissistic parents would beg to differ, but I was never allowed to do anything or go anywhere. I was like on a leash constantly. I remember when I was going, I went around the block once without permission, and I paid for it like hell, but that's another story. But I was not allowed to do anything practical. I was limited to the TV and the video games. I was always an excuse as to why I couldn't go out. You're gonna get yourself into trouble. I heard the classic stranger danger as a kid. The strangers are out to, the strangers are the danger, even though the real danger was at home. It was always an excuse. But, the one thing I did have, even though I didn't have real human connection, I still struggle to have real human connection. The one thing I did have was the video games. So, it's like, I was a very imaginative kid, and I just feel like I was making friends, it was very real as a kid. Like, I was just like, even though I knew it wasn't real, it was real to me. I was like making friends with these characters online. I was making a story for myself, going through a story, someone else's story, but it felt like at the time as if it was my story because I was a kid. So that's really why I got so heavily into these games now. I thought about it for a long time. I could never put them down. It's just because it's just a distraction. It was a distraction from how bad my life was. It was a distraction. It was a way to make friends, even if they weren't real friends. They were imaginary pixels on a screen. They were characters that were not real. They told every game and every character inside the game told a story. They all had a story about them, every character in the game. And it's like, the more I played them, the more I wanted to be a part of it, and the less that I wanted to be in reality, because of how bad reality is. And, because of how bad it was. And it's still bad. It's still awful. And it was like cigarettes. It was like any cigarette and alcohol addiction. That was my cigarette and alcohol addiction, was the video games. It's like, I still struggle to not play them because, my reality is still shitty. It still sucks. But I'm at the age now where I realize I should have started many years ago doing something. Unfortunately, I didn't, but I've matured up past the point where I'm ready to say, look, my life is really shitty, I want to make it better, I'm going to die trying to make it better, because at least I tried. I know everybody's heard that, but at least if it doesn't get better, I tried to make it better. I know that I've done everything I can to make it better. But and I still battle with it. It's hard to stop. It's very, very hard to stop. I think about it a lot, but I refuse to. I'll pick it up again eventually. It's always going to be a hobby for me, just because the memories and the experiences shared. And I think that's why it's very. I think a lot of men play video games and they're addicted to video games, especially younger boys, younger teens, Gen Z. They're addicted because it's like they don't have any role models. They don't have. Millennials grew up without role models. Most of us grew up with baby boomers, a lot of which were narcissistic. We didn't have any role models. So it was like, who do we look up to as role models? We look up to characters on a screen. We look up to, Kratos. You guys look up to Kratos and how to be a masculine man. They look up to, characters like, exactly, like characters like Kratos, or like, characters from like Max Payne or Uncharted, or like masculine figures. That's why guys they look up to masculine figures, Space Marine 2, they're like the masculine figures in that game. What other games? It's a lot of games that have come out. Like they look up to, how could I say it? Like they look up, even Dante's Inferno, Ryu Hayabusa from Ninja Gaiden. Like guys and boys, and this is something that women don't understand. I think a lot of women don't understand this. Is guys and young kids, they don't have role models. Okay, now more than ever in 2025, we do not have role models. I grew up with a loser family. Okay, loser. I have a loser cousin who dropped out of high school. Sorry, not sorry. He's a loser. That's a he hasn't done anything with his life. He's certainly not a role model. Like, I grew up with a lot of family members that were just losers, alcoholics. Other people who have done absolutely nothing with their lives. Certainly nobody to look up to. So it's just like, guys don't have a lot of people to look up to. My ex-girlfriend, her uncle, complete loser. Most of their family members, complete losers. They don't do anything with their lives. They haven't done anything with their lives. And they're drug addicts, so it's just like, I think a lot of guys grow up with people without role models. A lot of kids are growing up without role models. They're not growing up as strong male figures. And, a lot of them are growing up with single mothers. And sorry, you need both. You need a mom and a dad, and you need to have them both work together. You need to have a mom who loves the dad. You need to have a loving family relationship. Their parents need to have a loving relationship with each other. I truly believe this. Your parents need to have a loving relationship with each other before they can show you how to be loved and cared for as a child. And if you're not seeing that, you're not seeing an example of a loving relationship between your parents, like I did. Like I didn't see a loving relationship. I saw chaos. I just saw dysfunction. I didn't see a loving relationship. I just saw two people who tolerated each other. And again, I just think that kids are so many of these kids are missing out on having that normal relationship. A lot of them, like I said, don't even have an uncle or an aunt they can look up to. A lot of them don't even have somebody outside of that they can look up to. Friends, anybody in their extended family that they can look up to and admire. So what do? They look up at TV characters. They look at actors like Arnold Schwarzenegger. They look at Stallone. They look at other masculine figures. They look at, Jean-Claude Van Damme or whatever. They look at Bruce Lee. And then the video games. They look at, Scorpion. They look at Mortal Kombat characters. They look at, for example, I don't know. Like I said, God of War. They look at God of War, for example. Characters in Call of Duty. They look at to look up to as a strong masculine figure. Like I said, and this is the problem. is that game companies know this. They know that, and they'll, what else to look up to? They look up to I can't remember his name. They look up to the main character of The Last of, like, they look up to these strong video game characters, and video game companies know this. Video game companies know these people are dysfunctional. Video game companies know a lot of these people are broken, and they create addiction through emotional connections, because that's what a lot of guys are craving now. It's like what a lot of people are missing, especially young boys and guys. Like, they're missing the emotional connection that you would get from a real life relationship. They're missing the rewards from real life relationships. Okay? They're missing a reason. They're missing and desperately needing a reason to continue on in this shit society and this shit system that we have going on right now, that just seems to take and 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 gives nothing back. Gives nothing back. You go to work every day, you bust your fucking ass every day, and you come home fucking exhausted. You come home tired. I come home fucking tired every day. And I get nothing out of it. I get a room with a bunch of roommates. I get to drive a crap car. I get to eat, bottom of the barrel food. And I think, like, a lot of these people, like, so many Americans are living, was like 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck right now. So it's just like, it makes sense why men are just giving up and playing video games. It makes sense why boys are so addicted to the Fortnite. They're looking up to these Fortnite characters. They're looking up to Spider-Man. They're looking up to Hulk or whoever is in Fortnite. Like, they're looking up to these characters. Wolverine, Deadpool. They're looking up to them. They're like, I want to be that, But I know in the real world, I can't be any of these things. And in the real world, things feel like they're impossible to achieve. I grind and I grind and I grind, and I try to get better, and I try to level up in the real world. But every time I try to level up in the real world, I just get poorer. I think a lot of men are feeling that. Every time I try to level up in the real world, I just get a shit job, Or every time I try to get farther ahead, something happens. Car breaks down or some other catastrophe happens. And, most of all, people are just tired of paying bills. Like, they're just tired of playing the game. If you had to play a game, if you had to play the shittiest video game out there, whatever that video game for you that's shitty that might be, like, if you had to play the shittiest video game out there, okay, and, like, whatever it is, I don't know whatever video game it is. I played some shitty video games, but whatever that video game might be for you, like, for example, for me, I don't know, shittiest video game I've ever played, there's some of them. There's this Buzz Lightyear game I used to play. It was pretty bad. What is it? I know Cyberpunk's pretty bad. I haven't played it, thank God, whatever video game that may be that's shitty. It's like, imagine playing the shittiest video game in the world, and you every time you try to turn off the console or unplug it, it just stays connected. It's like, just imagine you're forced to play it forever and ever and ever and ever until you beat it. And you don't want to beat it because it's so bad. And it seems impossible to beat at the same time because it's so hard to beat, because the controls and the mechanics in the game are so bad. But you have to beat it because you're forced to play it. You're forced to have to beat it. Just imagine that kind of scenario. And that's what it feels like to me, at least. And I think a lot of other men, that's what this whole capitalism system feels like. If we're even living in capitalism anymore, I'm pretty sure we're living in an oligarchy, but that's what this system feels like. It's just a constant uphill battle of just barely, people ask how you're doing, you're like, you're barely scraping by, I'm just another day, like, just another 12, 13-hour shift, getting nothing out of it. Excuse me. Just another 12 or 13-hour shift, I'm scraping by. That's what everybody says. You ask them how they're doing, they're like, I'm doing okay, I'm scraping by, whatever. hanging in there, like, and just people, or I'm fine, the classic, I'm fine. Everybody's just down in the dumps, like, half dead and just emotionally drained from just living the same bullshit day in and day out with these jobs. Going and grinding and working for these dead-end jobs, this dead-end pay, just to have to go back tomorrow and do it again. Like, people are fed up. No wonder why guys are staying home and playing video games. No fucking wonder. And it's sad. Because now with Donald Trump, I'm not on either side. All right, and I usually don't talk politics, and I'm going right now because we got some serious issues going on with these tariffs. All right, apparently Toyota has moved their manufacturing out of America now, and I think it's in Mexico or something. But apparently they're moving they're not going to be manufacturing Toyotas anymore in America. So that's a big problem. When these tariffs go, people feel hopeless. It's another reason why people are escaping into video games, into a fake reality. People are feeling hopeless. These tariffs keep happening, we're going to lose even more jobs. He's not creating jobs. We're not seeing any more job growth here. We're not seeing prices go down. And I realize it's only been a few months, but shit, like, things are bad out here, man. Things are bad. And again, I'm not for either side. I really am not. You call me a fence sitter if you want. I don't really care, but I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Biden. I haven't voted in I don't fucking know how long. But this is why. These are all these reasons that I'm explaining. All these reasons are why just people are fed up. Why men are fed up, and they're like, you know what? I know the reward is not real in a video game. I know it's not real, but at least it gives me some sense of peace. At least I can sit down, I can enjoy this game, I can disconnect my brain, and I can just enjoy it. I can just enjoy it. Or same thing with TV. Men can just enjoy it. Sit down and enjoy it and not worry about anything. Not worry for at least a little while. Like, not have to worry about bills, not have to worry about their shitty job, not have to worry about all this stress that comes with just the daily grind and just putting all these hours and all this work for what seems like nothing. And again, it's sad. Like, I just wish that there were better opportunities in America, because there's just no opportunities anymore. I wish there were better opportunities. I wish there were more ways for making money. I wish that we weren't in so much debt. I wish that we had a government that would help its people. But unfortunately, we live in a harsh reality, and that's not going to happen. None of that's ever going to happen. Things are going to continue to get worse. They're not going to get better. And we're going to keep having to play the game until, either people refuse or there's another world war or something that usually resets everything. But hopefully not, but again, this is why men are feeling hopeless. This is why men are so addicted to the video games, and they're escaping into the video games because they see the reality of the situation. Again, like a drug addict, like a person who's addicted to cigarettes, like a person who's addicted to alcohol. This is their escape, This is the men's escape, is the video games. They can be someone. At least they can be someone in the video games. And I think, in my opinion, the video games are more addictive because, yes, you can numb yourself out with alcohol, you can numb yourself with cigarettes, but when you turn on the video game, you can numb yourself in your emotions, and you can pretend to be somebody else at the same time. And now with how advanced the graphics are and how great the storytelling is in video games, and a lot of them, it's just like they feel more. Now we got VR too. I forgot to even mention VR. Now even with VR, you can actually feel like you're there. So you're getting to experience stepping into the shoes of this character and immersing yourself and feeling like you're playing this character and you are actually this character, you know, even if it's only for a few moments or, you know, a little while. You're disconnecting, you're feeling like you're this character, you are playing out this character's story. And like, this is why it's so addicting. So I don't know. I wish things would change in reality, you know, because I see that video games are definitely harmful when they're being consumed the way they are, you know, for hours upon hours and hours upon hours and not living in reality. But it's like, I get it, man. I get it. I was right there playing video games because I lived in such a shit reality dealing with my parents. They were shitty parents, still are shitty parents. I'd play for upwards of 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, even like 16 hours sometimes on the games playing Super Smash Bros. Melee. Like, I get it, you know? And I think that's what a lot of kids are going through. Bad parents, maybe their parents are getting divorced, bad situations. Men are going through whatever, breakups, you know, bad, shitty jobs, poverty. It's one of the ultimate escapes. It really is. Even more so than cigarettes, alcohol, and movies combined. Because with the movie, you know, with the cigarettes and alcohol, you're numbing your emotions. Yes, with the movie, you are putting yourself, you know, you can watch somebody else live out their life, all right, in a movie. But with a game, you get to play this character living out this fantasy story, and you're so immersed in the game that you think you're actually the person who's doing all these things. So I'm gonna leave it there. I hope you guys like this video. I hope you guys like this explanation. I thought about it right on the spot, honestly, as I was driving to the gym. Yeah, my friend's going to be here in a little bit. I'm going to work out. And I'm going to go home and cook some food and then go to bed. And again, repeat the same cycle for tomorrow and go to work, go to my shitty job. And, but yeah, these are my reasons as to why young boys and men are so addicted to the video games in 2025. So, hope you like it. Leave a comment. Let me know if you have any other video recommendations. Leave a like if you like the video. Yes, I will get to your video recommendations. I'm sorry, I've been busy. It's been really busy for me with the whole school and everything, doing the courses, doing work, gym, sometimes overtime. But I will get to them. So, till the next video, guys, take care.